NHK found that Japanese people are mostly positive toward Buddhism and Christianity. But for Islam, just 7% positive, 21% negative. So why are Japanese people resistant to certain religions? To understand the unique Japanese attitude toward religion, we first need to grasp what religion looks like in Japan. In Japan, Shinto and Buddhism are the two dominant religions, as you can probably tell from the number of shrines and temples across the country. According to an international survey published in 2022, 48.5% of people identified with Shinto and 46.3% with Buddhism. Christianity ranked third, but with only about 1% of the population. Statistically, Japan is a Shinto Buddhist country. But if you ask a few Japanese people about their religion, what chances are you will hear, "I don't follow any particular religion," or "I'm not really a religious person." And honestly, I'm a perfect example of this. Well, I grew up in a Buddhist temple here, as you can see, but if someone asked me if I'm Buddhist, I'd probably say, not really. So if someone like me who literally grew up in a temple doesn't strongly identify with a religion, it's even more natural for people from ordinary households to feel the same. So why has religious sentiment faded among Japanese people? Well, in Japan, it's often said that Shinto and Buddhism have long coexisted peacefully. Rather than choosing one religion over another, people simply incorporated both into their everyday life. Religion was less about philosophy and more about natural customs incorporated into their routines. But things started to shift during the Meiji era, which is around 1868 to 1912. The government began using Shinto as a tool to unify the country ideologically. This system became known as State Shinto, where Shinto was no longer treated as a religion, but rather as a state-backed ideology. The government promoted emperor worship and shrine practices as national duties and oversaw religious activities through administrative policies. This ideology was used to justify and spiritually encourage Japan's participation in wars. As a result, after World War II, the GHQ, General Headquarters, abolished the state Shinto, and many Japanese were left with the strong impression that mixing religion with politics is dangerous. The new constitution established freedom of religion and clearly separated religion from the state. From the 1950s to the 1970s, this new religious freedom led to the rise of many new religious movements in Japan. I won't name them, especially here, but if you ask Japanese people, a few well-known names probably come out. These new religions often focus on personal growth, self-help or spiritual healing, and gained a large following, especially among people who were feeling isolated or uncertain in the post-war period. For many, these groups became a source of comfort and community. But all of this changed dramatically in 1995, with the Tokyo subway sarin gas attack. A new religious movement called Om Shinrikyo released deadly sarin gas in the Tokyo subway system, resulting in the loss of 13 lives and injured more than 6,000. It was one of the worst domestic terrorist attacks in Japanese history, and it left a deep and lasting trauma in society. Until then, religious freedom had been taken for granted, but after this incident, many Japanese people began to associate religion itself with danger and suspicion. Religious groups that exhibit the following characteristics stated to be labeled as cult-like, secretive, or closed-off communities, aggressive recruitment tactics, and charismatic, unquestioned leaders. Even though the attack happened over 30 years ago, a similar religion-related scandals still surface from time to time, and their emotional impact continue to shape Japanese society. One such example is the association of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in 2022. The suspect claimed his mother had made huge donations to a religious group, which led to the family financial ruin. He believed Abe had ties to the group, which became a motive for the attack. But of course, most people believe what the attacker did is inexcusable, but some have said things like, what he did was wrong, but I can understand the pain of losing everything to a religious group. Well, in Japan, donating large sums of money to certain religious groups is sadly not unheard of, but in fact, I personally know a friend of mine whose parent is involved in one such group and regularly donates. Even among younger generations, these incidents have contributed to a growing sense of resistance or discomfort toward religion. But here's a question. Why do people have negative opinions about major world religions like Islam and Hinduism, which aren't new religious movements? As I mentioned at the beginning, surveys have shown that certain religions are viewed more negatively than positively. One of the biggest reasons for this is simply that they are unfamiliar. In other words, they are unknown to most Japanese people. Well, it's extremely rare in Japan to come across someone who practices Islam, Judaism, or Hinduism in daily life. But remember, even Christians in Japan, just 1% of the population. Most people don't have friends who are followers of these religions. They don't know the teachings and they have never seen the actual rituals or customs. So instead of understanding the substance of these religions, people end up reacting to vague impressions. And when something is unfamiliar, people naturally become cautious. In Japan, the unfamiliarity is often filled in by the media. For many Japanese people, their only exposure to certain religions come from the news. Unfortunately, the stories that get covered tend to focus on extreme cases by groups involved in conflict, controversy, or political tension. As a result, these religions are often associated with words like dangerous, radical, or scary. Well, imagine forming your opinion about an entire belief system without ever meeting someone who actually practices it. This is something I've experienced personally. Well, to be honest, I used to feel a bit uneasy about Islam. That's because back when I was a student, most of the news I saw about Islam involved acts of violence committed by, radical groups. But later, I had the chance to live in Indonesia, a Muslim-majority country. I met many people who practiced Islam peacefully. I visited mosques, joined in Ramadan, and gradually my views changed. At the very last, the negative image I had before completely disappeared. What I want to emphasize here is this. I'm not trying to blame the media or any particular religion. It's natural that news focus on political or controversial events. It's also true that many Japanese people simply don't have opportunities to learn about religion beyond what they see in the headlines. Well, unfortunately, this lack of exposure combined with Japan's historical and cultural background makes it easy for people to develop negative impressions of unfamiliar religions without even realizing it. Well, up until now, I've talked about the negative impressions some Japanese people have towards certain religions. But in order to truly understand this, we also need to look at how Japanese people view religion itself. Take Christians, for example. Many people in Japan celebrate it every year, but very few actually think of it as a Christian religious holiday. In fact, for a lot of people, Christmas is just a romantic night to spend with your partner. Similarly, weddings are often held in churches in Japan, funerals in Buddhist temples, and New Year's visit at Shinto shrines. To someone from outside Japan, this might seem like a strange mix of religions, but for most Japanese people, it's just culture, not faith. But these customs are social practices, not personal belief systems. That's why even people who consider themselves non-religious in Japan take part in religious events throughout the year. And that brings us back to something I mentioned earlier. When Japanese people say, "I have no religion," it doesn't necessarily mean they reject religion. It often means that they don't consciously identify with any specific faith, or they don't view their customs as religious acts. So in Japan, religion is often less about what you believe and more about how you live or what tradition you maintain. And this flexible soft approach to religion can sometimes make it harder for people here to understand religions that are more structured or visibly practiced. That is part of why unfamiliar religion may feel distant or even threatening to some. As we have explored throughout this video, the negative impressions some Japanese people have towards certain religions are not simply due to prejudice or intentional discrimination. Rather, it's a result of a complex combination of factors, including historical background, the way religion is portrayed in the media, and how religion is often seen more as a culture practice than a belief system in Japan. So what do you think about the way some Japanese people feel uncomfortable with certain religions? What do you find it understandable, or is it very different from how religion is viewed in your country? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment box below. Sharing your perspective might help others see things in a new way too. If you'd like to know more about religion and the spirituality things in Japan, I also talk about it a bit in this video right here, so please watch it later. Alright, so thanks so much for watching. See you soon. Bye.